That feeling of solidarity has no price tag. You have to be there to involve yourself in it. I think that's exciting for a lot of people in the UAW who had never have felt that are now living it.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We have on the line with us Mark Gevaart from My Labor Radio in Indiana. He is a UAW member at GM in Wentzville. Is that right?
No, it's Fort Wayne Assembly. Wentzville is 2205 over in, well, you would have Glenn from Labor Front, if you know Glenn very well, Glenn Kagi. And I am in Fort Wayne. Wentzville builds the Colorado and Canyon. We build the full-size Chevy and GMC pickup trucks here. We got about 4,000 members at our local here. Had our informational meeting this week for this contract. So the International Union has 3 reps in a truck pulling into the union hall and gets rear-ended by a semi. Totals the truck, deploys all the airbags. It's one of our trucks, so it held up well, but bent the frame so bad. It was a horrible accident. It's just, you know, it's a highway. We're in the rural area, and they get rear-ended. And so the informational meeting is conducted without the people that were actually at the table. So needless to say, it was not really an informational meeting. We're guessing and surmising, and we think their intent was this on this language, trying to answer the questions of members. And there were quite a few members because this was right before that third shift meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it ruined the entire day. The reps, I can say, are okay, bruised, battered, sore neck, sore arm, because they got jostled pretty good in a totaled truck. So they're all fine. They went back to their homes, but the truck is totaled and stuck here. It's just challenges everywhere. So not schedule another meeting yet for informational purposes because the schedule was full. Those guys have every day, every hour booked for them. We do have a vote coming up this week, Thursday, this next week coming. So lots of locals are voting here and there. And yes, there's some support, and then there's not support in other places too. And it's very close. But there's a lot of things a lot of people want. You've got the legacy person's been around for 30 years plus. They want certain things. They want things towards their pension. There's the younger member who's the temp who's ready to go right now, said, you know what, make me full-time. I think this is great. I'll take it. Then you've got the person who's got 7 or 8 years who doesn't have a pension, who said, hey, what about me? I didn't get my pension. I thought you guys were going to put a pension in place for all of us here. It's dicey. You got to try and, anything like this when you're dealing with 150,000 members under this agreement, this master agreement, which is the 3, which is Stellantis, Ford, and Chrysler. That's 150,000 total of those 3. When you're wrestling with something like that, you put out expectations and people expect to see what their little thing needs to be met. So it's always tough. Right. And it's being debated on social media endlessly, like every contract has. But I will say that Sean Fain and the team that's in there now, through this one member, one vote that happened, were really given a small window to prepare. I mean, they started in March of this year and they're at the table and bam. Now, that's not to say that we didn't have resolutions that came from local level sent to the International Union through the region. They were ready. They had that. They had an outline of a team because your committees, whether it's vehicle assembly or some other small parts people or the distribution centers and things like that. I mean, the tactics that were used in that short period of time, they had a plan. They always said they had a plan. And when they came in and delivered that plan, the whole world's standing up and watching, which is pretty amazing. I think that if we didn't have this team in place right now, we'd be still doing the same old thing. Yeah, we got you 3%. Take it, baby. Which we all know is a slap in the face when dealing with inflation and the things that are going on in America right now. So
yeah, well,
challenges everywhere.
Yeah, well, people have been interested in, what would these negotiations have looked like if they had played out under a Ray Curry administration.
Yeah,
and I'm interested in what your kind of hypothesis would be. Obviously, it's impossible to know for sure, but I'm sure.
Yeah, it is.
Thoughts.
We can only guess at this, but based on track record, let's push for history's purposes. Let's go back a little bit and know that Dennis Williams is found to be dirty. So he's president at the time. He gets removed. They pick the next person in line. The International Executive Board says, okay, Doug Jones, you're the guy. It turns out he's dirty too. So he gets moved out of the way, and they have their administrative assistants and those around them also are charged. So you end up with like 17 people in these widespread indictments who were dirty in some manner and found to be so and had to admit it, pay money back. It's convoluted mess, and I won't get into that whole court thing. But Ray Curry is the next person in line that the IEB puts forward, and he passes all their tests. He's clean. They don't have any dirt on him that they can find. And so he's moving forward. But he is cut from that same cloth that the others were, that I think we would have accepted a 3 to 5% maybe, or a 3% or 2% the second year type of thing. And it would have been another 3-year agreement, and we would have just turned right around and said, this is what happens. But I was on strike in 2019 for 40 days at that time, and that was just General Motors. At that time, I remember talking to Chrysler at the time, now Stellantis, and Ford members who said, hey, we'll go if they just put all of us out, or if they just put Ford out, or when's it going to be our turn? The Chrysler fella asked me. And it's like, I don't know. They just keep picking GM. So they take that, pattern that agreement, and send it out. So if we were today under that regime, I think you'd see barely a 3 to 5% increase. And I mean, I'm not there. We can only guess with that. But the point is they had this pattern that they always did. I refer to it as the get along gang, because since the late 80s and early 90s, they have been arm in arm with the corporations. We're getting along. We're going to get along because that's the way labor plays, which didn't give us a chance to act. We could act tough, but we couldn't be tough. We couldn't actually get things that were really needed. And then we go to the 2008 crash and find ourselves in the hands of, oh my gosh, we've got to give back. We've got to give back. And we heard that promise. You're going to get it back. We're just going to do this right now. We're doing our part. And the UAW did. And people in that defend capital all the time will ask, oh, you guys didn't give anything. Oh, hell yeah, we did. We get quite a few things back. And those things, COLA and among them, they wanted to redo that formula this time around. And Sean Fain and the team that were there, they weren't playing this. They didn't want to hear any of that. And when you take that model of things you've done over the years, you don't expect anything different. That's just how it's going to be. So this shakeup is a shakeup on many levels, and I'm here for it. I know Sean Fain's doing a victory lap right now. It's not done yet. We're still voting on that. There's still people with questions. There's still people with opinions on it that, I mean, you got hardcore folks on one end who say this is nothing, you could have done more, vote no. And then you got other people saying, wow, it meets all my requirements, I'm voting yes. So to get back to your original question, I think we would still be in a 2, 3, maybe 5% increase with an upfront splash of $12,000 or $15,000 on the front side, so that they give all this money, which everybody goes, oh, well, you know what? I've been on strike for a little while. I'll take that money. It's a sales pitch type of thing that they do, and we've seen it play out before too. It happens in the big three. I can't say that would happen at a Mac or somewhere else when you come in with unbelievable dollar amounts like that to give you a bonus to sign off on the agreement.
Right. Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate. You mentioned that there's some amount of discussion and debate, and obviously in any time you're never going to get 100% agreement.
Right.
And we have been seeing some locals voting, and most of the votes that I've been seeing and releasing their votes, and most of the votes that I've been seeing have been somewhere in the range between 70 to 80% support. There was the Chicago Assembly plant, which was the closest. It was 55% support, and that's apparently the first time that the Chicago Assembly plant has voted in favor of a contract in like 30 years.
Right. They're totally hardcore. The Local 551, those folks, it's great to watch, because when they got the green light from Sean Fain to walk out, I am not kidding you. It was Mardi Gras down there. Those guys were so excited because they had been wanting this for a long time. They always said, hey, can you make Ford the target? We want to all go 100%. And year over year, when we did the contract negotiations, it was General Motors got the pick. General Motors got the pick because they thought they could get the most and the biggest from them and then spread that around to the other two companies. I think in this case, 551, I get it. Those guys were gals too, were very excited about the options that were going on. I mean, they at a rally when Shawn Fain came to talk to them about how things were going and where they were at, they had Jesse Jackson shows up, albeit in a wheelchair, but he came out. He wanted to support the auto workers. I mean, there were some heavy hitters in the Chicagoland area who came down to that south side to that plant and were on that picket line. I know the Chicago Jobs with Justice team. Those guys work their tails off all the time. They're out there bringing food, bringing people down. They bring a busload of folks down to walk the picket lines with them. So, I mean, there was a lot of solidarity, and what that does when you take something like you've always watched from the outside, you're always in the stands. Now you're in the game, so to speak. Right. Now you're actually walking a picket line. That excitement, the solidarity that's felt, that can't be matched by any dollar figures that companies can throw at you. When you walk a strike line, when you hang out in solidarity with your brothers and sisters, in the middle of the night, midnight, it's dark out. There's nobody out there waving a flag. Hey, here's a donut. They're not coming down to visit at midnight and 3 a.m, but you're walking that strike line with your brothers and sisters. That feeling of solidarity has no price tag. You cannot buy that. You can't sell that. You have to be there to involve yourself in it. And I think that's exciting for a lot of people in the UAW who had never had felt that recently or in their career are now living it. And they were loving it.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm interested, how has the reception to Shawn Fain been as as all this is unfolded and we're coming close to a resolution? People still have to vote, but we're coming close to a resolution on the struggle against the Big Three for now. Yep. And and I ask because Shawn Fain was people wouldn't really remember this, but he squeaked through 500 votes, and
I say it was not a landslide. It was not a landslide.
It was a low turnout election. And 500 votes was his margin. So do you think he's been able to win people over?
As of now, I say yes, because of the fact he's only been there 6 months, if you think about it, and he's done a lot of things in 6 months. You were on the front page of every newspaper across the country as a president of a labor union. That's a big deal. There are papers who haven't written about unions positively in years, and they're talking about it right now. That exudes to the membership saying, hey, we're feeling this. We're popular now. This is cool. Same thing the Teamsters did for over a year. Sean O'Brien brought those guys to where they needed to be. In this case, I can say there's two schools of thought on this because it was such a close margin. I mean, I've been around for 40 years now, and I know and work with people who are in that same seniority time frame. They were nervous as hell because they were with the Curry team because it was always what we did. This is fine. This is safe. They didn't feel like, you know what? Break a leg. Let's jump. Is the parachute working? Let's just jump off this cliff. So, I mean, I get that feeling because I'm trying to be open-minded about the whole thing. I thought, wow, this is a really interesting change. This is something I've heard for 30 years, and now we're living it. So there's a whole group of people who are saying, he can't do that. He can't say that. Right. As soon as this 32-hour work week for 40 hours pay came out, 100% of the people I hang around with who have 30 plus years, this will never, that's just dumb. What are we doing? I said, folks, it's negotiations. We'll put that on the table. Does that piss off the corporation? Darn right it does, no matter who you are. Well, guess what? Maybe we lose that at the 11th hour and we gain all these other things we want. Maybe that's a ploy or a tool to bargain. They scratched their head and thought, you might be right. Let's just give it time, watch what happens. Today, they're now looking at their books of highlights and things like that and saying, I like this. So the older member likes it, but they were still skeptics right up until they had it in their hands to be able to review and read. But when I stand and talk to them about how they saw 2-3% increases over their 3-year agreement, they were never seeing that to see that to change, and now it did change, and you're getting a double-digit increase over 20% when the corporations told you, hey, 9, we're tapped out. We can't do any more than 9% right now. That's all we can do. When we proved that wrong, because there was more there to give. And we already knew that. We just had to keep pushing them in that way. So Shawn Fain's popularity is almost bigger in the media and the world around him, the pundits, historians of labor who followed this for years. There's some great perspectives on that. Jacobin's got some great articles. Labor Notes has some great articles. People are out there talking about how amazing this transformation is. It is. It's a time and place type of thing. But what's going on in the background is there's plenty of people who still say he's not done. He hasn't finished this yet. Don't just say it's going to happen. It's just, we got to work this through. So for all the people who support what's going on, that 50-50 build right now, that's still a dynamic that's out there right now in every local.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.